CAJE stands for Congregations Acting for Justice and Empowerment. And what CAJE does, 25 congregations band together and serve Posey, Vandenberg, and Warwick County. They tackle social issues such as inadequate housing, drug overdose deaths, inadequate transportation, mental health issues. They research and then they empower others to implement change. And they've had a lot of success over the years.
One of the things that really drew me to CAJE was the idea that congregations from a wide variety of faith backgrounds would get together. While we in our Christian tradition certainly have strong biblical call to justice, both in the Old Testament and New, it's great that we recognize each other's faith backgrounds and what we have in common. CAJE does that through a listening process. What we do is we have house meetings where one-on-one we sit around and talk about the problems of our day. What bothers us? What keeps us up at night? What we're trying to identify is common problems that we think might have an addressable solution. It might be funding $500,000 a year for a housing trust fund in the city of Evansville to address the incredibly large shortage of affordable housing units that we have in our community. People are paying huge amounts of rent and utilities in substandard housing that then puts them behind in terms of health care, educating their kids, being able to have a decent vehicle to get to and from a low-paying job. So all of these are things that we try to address through workable solutions.
I was left homeless when a truck destroyed the home I was renting. I spent 7 weeks living with my son while I tried to find a decent place that I could afford. I now pay $525 a month for my rent. The landlord requires renters to prove their income is at least 3 times the amount of the rent. I have worked my entire life for my Social Security that I receive, and it is my only income. It does not equal 3 times the rent. I had to ask my son to co-sign on the lease. I pay over 60% of my income for just rent and utilities for a home that has had interior and exterior leaks, mold, and other issues. Some people tell me to move. I can't afford to.
But the thing that I would really like people to understand is what happens to the people in this. You know, we're seeing a huge rise where we have 3, 4 families piling into a 2-bedroom home because they can't afford the rent, they can't afford the utility bills that are coming out. A lot of our homes, because they're older homes, a lot of them are owned by rental companies that don't upkeep them, and so it's very easy to have a $400, $600 electric bill in the wintertime for our people.
I have had an opportunity to witness children who couch surf from one place to the other. They sleep in their cars, they sleep wherever they can find any place to go. And so part of that has to go back to, what are we doing? Our kids are our future. If they don't have appropriate housing, places to live in, that means that they aren't eating, they don't have the clothing that they need. So you're asking families to try to decide what is more important. And families that are struggling, we are all going to go and do what is best for our kids, which meant that they were going from one job to the next job to the next job. And so to ask a child who has unstable living conditions or unsafe living conditions to come to school and try to focus on an exam is absurd.
About 30 years ago, Bob and I became foster parents. As we worked with the children in our care and took them to visitations with their birth families and talked with them and listened to them before visits and as they returned from visits, it became clear to me that they lived in a world that I had never experienced. A world where children don't always have clothing and nutritious food to eat. A world where children sometimes live in substandard housing and often may have to move from place to place quite frequently because their parents don't have the means to pay the rent any longer. We knew that we might ultimately have to return our children to their home. It was always my hope that they would take with them some of the experiences they'd had with us and that one day they'd have a brighter future. It was my fear that they would return to the often generational cycle of poverty. And I knew that foster care had only been a temporary fix and that there needed to be a way to change systems that continued to move that cycle forward. CAJE has given me an avenue in which to begin working toward systemic change and a just world.
25 congregations allows folks from Bethlehem to rub elbows with people from many faith backgrounds and from all over the metropolitan Evansville area. That's, to me, pretty important. And it's amazing when you look at it that those 25 congregations can end up affecting change through CAJE that one congregation cannot.
If you have a chance, whether you're invited or not, I would really hope that you would come and attend one of our house meetings so that you can be a part of something that really makes change in our community.